Hello and welcome to A Genteel Black Hole, the home of my bookish rambles. My name's Ali and welcome to the Poetry Party. A little while back, I put out invitations to a poetry party. The idea was that people would send me recordings of themselves reading a poem of their choice, and I would edit it all together into one long poetry party video. It was all inspired by the poetry parties that my mum used to host when I was younger. And when I floated the idea, I honestly thought that maybe 4 or 5 people might take part. But in the end, as you might tell by the length of this video, nearly 30 people have sent me their videos, which is incredible. So first of all, I just like to thank everyone who has participated and shown such enthusiasm for this project. It's been a really amazing thing for me to see everyone banding together, joining in, and encouraging me and encouraging everyone else to sign up as well. I've met new booktubers through doing this project, thanks to other people spreading the word to them. And it's just been a fantastic community building project, which, I think is really true to the spirit of the parties that my mum used to throw. So I'd like to start off with a poem from a book that I inherited from my mum. This is The Mersey Sound by the Liverpool poets, Adrian Henry, Roger McGough, and Brian Patten. And I would like to read for you a poem by Brian Patten. Here's the ticket for the poetry reading that we went to in 1997. But anyway, this is a poem by Brian Patten, and it's called A Small Dragon. I found a small dragon in the woodshed. Think it must have come from deep inside a forest, because it's damp and green, and leaves are still reflecting in its eyes. I fed it on many things, tried grass, the roots of stars, hazelnut and dandelion, but it stared up at me as if to say, I need foods you can't provide. It made a nest among the coal, not unlike a bird's, but larger. It is out of place here, and is quite silent. If you believed in it, I would come hurrying to your house to let you share my wonder. But I want instead to see if you yourself will pass this way. But that's it from me for now. So for the rest of this video, I'll see you at the end just to sign off. But for the next hour and a bit, I would like to hand over to all of the people who did indeed pass this way. Angelia, from Read and Reread.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful time with this poetry party. I am so glad that Ali invited us all. What a fabulous idea. For my poem that I wanted to share today, I spent a long time looking through old favorites and new favorites, and it got down to one particular line in one particular poem. And that's something that I love so much about poems, is that you could read the same poem a million times, and then one word, one phrase, one line has something new to say to you. And so that is what happened. And the poem that I chose is from the collection Howl by Allen Ginsberg. It was published in 1955 by City Lights Books, which still has a fantastic bookstore in San Francisco if you're ever there. And the poem that I want to share today is called A Supermarket in California. The line that jumped out to me from this poem From across the decades, from a poem written 70 years ago, The Lost America of Love. And in this poem, Ginsberg is wondering about Walt Whitman's experience of America as he thinks about his own. And that moved to me across time and space to 2025 and the thoughts that I am having today about America. And I love this poem for many other reasons as well. A supermarket in California. What thoughts I have of you tonight, Walt Whitman, for I walk down the side streets under the trees with a headache, self-conscious, looking at the full moon. In my hungry fatigue and shopping for images, I went into the neon fruit supermarket, dreaming of your enumerations. What peaches and what penumbras! Aisles full of husbands, wives in the avocados, babies in the tomatoes. And you, Garcia Lorca, what were you doing down by the watermelons? I saw you, Walt Whitman, childless, lonely old grubber, poking among the meats in the refrigerator and eyeing the grocery boys. I heard you asking questions of each. Who killed the pork chops? What price? Bananas. Are you my angel? I wandered in and out of the brilliant stacks of cans, following you and followed in my imagination by the store detective. We strode down the open corridors together in our solitary fancy, tasting artichokes, possessing every frozen delicacy, and never passing the cashier. Where are we going, Walt Whitman? The doors close in an hour. Which way does your beard point tonight? I touch your book and dream of our odyssey in the supermarket, and I feel absurd. Will we walk all night through solitary streets? The streets add shade to shade, the lights out in the houses. We'll both be lonely. Will we stroll dreaming of the lost America of love past blue automobiles and driveways, home to our silent cottage? Ah, dear Father Graybeard, lonely old courage teacher, what America did you have when Charon quit pulling his ferry and you got out on a smoking bank and stood watching the boat disappear on the black waters of Lethe? Thank you, everybody.
Aaron, from Aaron Facer.
Hello, my name is Aaron, and for the poetry party, I'm going to be reading a poem from this collection, Insistence, by Ailbhe Darcy. The poem is called Ansel Adams Aspens. Ansel Adams Aspens. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky must seem a miracle. I'd commit the scene to black and white if I could, the sky bright and bottomless, trees gnarled as the knees of elephants. Helpless in his Biltrite pram, Ansel Adams is watching the clouds roll in. Then the clouds would gather speed, roll out again, and the camera panned down to Ansel Adams, the man, kneeling on granite, choosing one filter over another. It's as though more and greater apparatus were needed to recapture that first exposure, says the voiceover, as though Ansel Adams were a pioneer toiling after the spirit, not just the body, of America. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky must seem a matter of fact. It's the mind beneath he wants to grasp, stowed in its smart black enclosure. I'd have his pram gather speed and transform, a cartoon robot against the heavens, wheels spinning into Ansel Adams' camera. Now the bright black sky is Ansel Adams, and Ansel Adams the filter. Light renders each tree a bouquet of paper. The Great Depression gathers like so much weather. To tiny Ansel Adams, newly arrived on this earth, the sky is what it is, taut with its isness. Some time before dawn, the section framed by interior blackness and brightness, and each tree out there glows with itself, with the certainty of all of Ansel Adams' aspens. No one is watching but this one bewildered immigrant, toiling after sleep, saturated in monochrome. Sometimes it's all you'll find in the wilderness. Ansel Adams, tiny in his pram, composing the day just gone. There we go. Thanks for listening.
Anna from Anna G.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anna, and I wanted to first begin with thanking Allie so much for getting this poetry party on Booktube going. Today, I chose to read Sonnet 116 by William Shakespeare. I'll give you a little background on why I chose this poem. It's one of his famous love sonnets, and this one is also pretty personal to me. My husband and I have been together for about 10 years now, and when we first got together, I was very heavily involved in my university's Shakespeare in the Park student organization on campus. And him being like very game to impress me and be involved in things that I was interested in, decided that he would also get involved in one of our fall showcases. So we acted across from each other as Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, which was kind of an amazing experience. And Shakespeare has always been like a really important part of our lives and sort of our love stories. So when we got married, we wrote the ceremony ourselves, and this is one of the poems that we chose, and my best friend and maid of honor read it. So here you go. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved.
Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics.
Hi, I'm Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. I'm going to be reading one of my favorite poems, A Villanelle, by Elizabeth Bishop, called One Art. I like to call it my tombstone poem. If I ever had a tombstone, I wouldn't mind this appearing on it. So, One Art. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last, or next to last, of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love. I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. Thank you.
Hannah from Hannah's Books.
Hello, I'm Hannah from Hannah's Books, and I'm very excited to join this poetry party. I chose something to share that I discovered way back in the late 1980s, How to Like It, by the contemporary poet Stephen Dobyns. It's a poem that often resonates with me whenever I'm feeling any cosmic anxiety. It's about a man and his dog and how they take care of one another. One caveat, Dobyns could be accused of anthropomorphizing the dog in this work, giving it human motivations and speech, But fundamentally, he's emphasizing the strength of what the dog, and dogs in general perhaps, seem to feel naturally that this human cannot. So this is How to Like It. These are the first days of fall. The wind at evening smells of road still to be traveled, while the sounds of leaves blowing across the lawns is like an unsettled feeling in the blood. The desire to get in a car and just keep driving. A man and a dog descend their front steps. The dog says, "Let's go downtown and get crazy drunk. Let's tip over all the trash cans we can find." This is how dogs deal with the prospect of change. But in his sense of the season, the man is struck by the oppressiveness of his past, how his memories, which were shifting and fluid, have grown more solid, until it seems he can see remembered faces caught up among the dark places in the trees. The dog says, "Let's pick up some girls and just rip off their clothes. Let's dig holes everywhere." Above his house, the man notices wisps of cloud crossing the face of the moon. Like in a movie, he says to himself, a movie about a person leaving on a journey. He looks down the street to the hills outside of town and finds the cut where the road heads north. He thinks of driving on that road and the dusty smell of the car heater, which hasn't been used since last winter. And the dog says, "Let's go down to the diner and sniff people's legs. Let's stuff ourselves on burgers." In the man's mind, the road is empty and dark. Pine trees pressed down to the edge of the shoulder, where the eyes of animals fixed in its headlights shine like small cautions against the night. Sometimes a passing truck makes his whole car shake. The dog says, "Let's go to sleep. Let's lie down by the fire and put our tails over our noses." But the man wants to drive all night, crossing one state line after another and never stop until the sun creeps into his rearview mirror. Then he'll pull over and rest a while before starting again, and at dusk he'll crest a hill, and there, filling a valley, will be the lights of a city entirely new to him. But the dog says, "Let's just go back inside. Let's not do anything tonight." So they walk back up the sidewalk to the front steps. How is it possible to want so many things and still want nothing? The man wants to sleep and wants to hit his head again and again against a wall. Why is it all so difficult? But the dog says, "Let's go make a sandwich. Let's make the tallest sandwich anyone's ever seen." And that's what they do. And that's where the man's wife finds him, staring into the refrigerator as if into the place where all the answers are kept. The ones telling you why you get up in the morning and how it's possible to sleep at night. Answers to what comes next and how to like it. Thank you so much, Allie, for inviting me to your party. It's a joy to be here, and I can't wait to see what everyone else chooses to read.
David, from David Novak Reads Poetry.
Regular visitors to my channel, David Novak Reads Poetry, will be aware of my affinity with the great Claude McKay. This is a marvelous selection of poems, not one in the bunch that I don't like. So I'm going to read one called The Plateau. It was the silver, heart-enveloping view of the mysterious sea line far away, seen only on a gleaming gold-white day that made it dear and beautiful to you. And Laura loved it for the little hill where the quartz sparkled fire, barren and dun, whence in the shadow of the dying sun she contemplated Hallow's wooden mill. while Danny liked the sheltering high grass in which he lay upon a clear, dry night, to hear and see, screened skillfully from sight, the happy lovers of the valley pass. But oh, I loved it for the big round moon that swung out of the clouds and swooned aloft, burning with passion gloriously soft, lighting the purple flowers of fragrant June. Once again, the poet Claude McKay.
Deborah, who doesn't have a channel but can be found on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Deborah Haber, and today I will be reading The Onion by Wislawa Szymborska. She is my favorite poet. She was from Poland and won the Nobel Prize. Today, this poem is a celebration of language, the way she makes syllables sing and plays with it. So I also have to give a tip of the hat to the translators, Stanislaw Baranchak and Claire Kavanagh, for being able to make this poem everything that it is in a foreign language, which I think is, duly impressive. So here we go. The onion. Now that's something else. Its innards don't exist. Nothing but pure onionhood fills this devout onionist. Oniony on the inside, onionesque it appears. It follows its own dimunion without our human tears. Our skin is just a cover-up for the land where none dare go. An internal inferno, the anathema of anatomy. In an onion there's only onion from its top to its toe. Unanimous monomania, unanimous omninudity, at peace of a piece, internally at rest. Inside it there's a smaller one of undiminished worth. The second holds a third one, the third contains a fourth, a centripetal fugue, polyphony compressed. Nature's rotundest tummy, its greatest success story, the onion drapes itself in its own aureoles of glory. We hold veins, nerves, and fat, secretions, secret sections, not for us such idiotic, onionoid perfections. So there you go. I just have to say my favorite phrase one more time. Unanimous monomania, unanimous omninudity. Can you even? I hope you have a great day in poetry.
Gavin from Genre Books.
Hello, my name's Gavin. My channel is Genre Books, and the poet I have chosen today is Stevie Smith. She isn't talked about a lot, I don't think. I don't talk about poetry a lot on Booktube, but I do like poetry. And I've liked Stevie Smith for a long time. And if there's any doubt that the Booktube gods meant me to choose Stevie Smith, she was not christened Stevie, obviously. Her style of riding a horse as a teenager earned her the nickname because she looked like the jockey Steve Donahue. The first poem is Souvenir de Monsieur Pup. I am the self-appointed guardian of English literature. I believe tremendously in the significance of age. I believe that a writer is wise at 50, 10 years wiser at 60, at 70, a sage. I believe that juniors are lively, to be encouraged with discretion and snubbed. I believe also that they are bouncing, communistic, ill-mannered, and, of course, young. But I never define what I mean by youth, because that word undefined is much more useful for general purposes of abuse. I believe that literature is a school where only those who apply themselves diligently to their tasks acquire merit, and only after the passage of a good many years, see above. But then I am an old fogey. I always write more in sorrow than in anger. I am, after all, devoted to Shakespeare, Milton, and, coming to our own times, of course, Houseman. I have never been known to say a word against the established classics. I am, in fact, devoted to the established classics. In the service of literature, I believe absolutely in the principle of division. I divide into age groups and also into schools. This is in keeping with my scholastic mind and enables me to trounce not only youth, which might be thought intellectually frivolous by pedants, but also periodical tendencies to ventilate in a word my own political and moral philosophy. When I say that I am an old fogey, I am, of course, joking. English literature, as I see it, requires to be defended by a person of integrity and essential good humour against the forces of fanaticism, idiosyncrasy and anarchy. I am perfectly apprehended to the perilous nature of my convictions, and I am prepared to go to the stake for Shakespeare, Milton, and, coming to our own times, of course, Houseman. I cannot say more than that, can I? And I do not deem it advisable in the interests of the editor to whom I am spatially contracted, to say less. Stevie Smith was on the shortlist to be Poet Laureate following the death of John Masefield in 1967. Dame Helen Gardner of Merton College, Oxford, said that her poems were too silly, little girls' poetry. The chair of the Poetry Society, Geoffrey Handley Taylor, merely said she was unstable. I think Souvenir de Monsieur Poup gives her true feelings about academia in return. But I want to finish with what is probably her most famous poem. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him, his heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, 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 it was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Bye.
Allen, from Allen's Reads.
Hello everyone, my name is Alan from the YouTube channel Alan's Reads. I'd like to read two poems to you today by the First World War poet Marian Allen. The first is titled The Raiders, and the second is entitled The Wind on the Downs. Marian Allen was originally born in Australia and emigrated with her family when she was very young to Oxford in England. She published a volume of poetry at the end of the First World War entitled The Wind on the Downs, and I'll read the title poem to you in a moment. She was engaged to be married to an airman in the Royal Flying Corps who tragically was killed, shot down on a mission after she'd written the first of the poems that I want to read to you, called The Raiders. And she later went on to write the volume The Wind on the Downs. So let's get to the poems. This is The Raiders by Marian Allen. In shadowy formation up they rise, dusky raiders with their bat-like wings. The night is studded with 1,000 eyes, and its dim cloak on desolation flings. The wind through stay and wire moans and whines, the engines throb with thrilled expectant breath. 80 miles to eastward of the lines, they go and carry with them stings of death. The spirit of adventure calls ahead, they leave the earth behind them, battle-bound, and rise untrammelled from the war-stained ground. Grey moving shadows o'er the lonely dead, flying unflinching as an arrow flies down the enchanted roadway of the skies. And then the second poem is entitled The Wind on the Downs. I like to think of you as brown and tall, as strong and living as you used to be, in khaki tunic, sand brown belt and all, and standing there and laughing down at me. Because they tell me, dear, that you are dead, because I can no longer see your face, you have not died, it is not true. Instead, you seek adventure in some other place. That you are round about me, I believe. I hear you laughing as you used to do, yet loving all the things I think of you. And knowing you are happy, should I grieve? You follow and are watchful where I go. How should you leave me, having loved me so? We walked along the towpath, you and I, beside the sluggish moving still canal. It seemed impossible that you should die. I think of you the same and always shall. We thought of many things and spoke of few, and life lay all uncertainly before, and now I walk alone and think of you and wonder what new kingdom you'll explore. Over the railway line, across the grass, while up above the golden wings are spread, flying, ever flying overhead, here still I see your khaki figure pass, and when I leave the meadow, almost wait that you should open first the wooden gate. Thanks for listening.
Colin, who doesn't have a channel.
Hello, it's me, Colin Kerris, and today I'm going to be reading a poem by Wilfred Owen from 1917 called Anthem for Doomed Youth. It was a war poem from the First World War, and as you can see from the cover of this book, it might be back to front, like most wars are. Anyway, let's just get into it. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty horizons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers, nor of bells, nor any voicey mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of visiting shells, and bugles calling for them fae sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? No in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of Givel's brows shall be their pall. The flowers, the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawn down of the blinds.
Grig, from Ghost Readers in the Sky.
Hello, my fellow readers. My name is Grig. My channel, Ghost Readers in the Sky. I do a lot of performing of cowboy poetry on this channel. Every Thursday for me is Cowboy Poetry Thursday. And today, as part of this poetry party that Allie has organized for us, I wanted to read you a poem by Joel Nelson. Joel Nelson was born in 1943. He was a saddle maker. He trained horses. And for much of his life, he ran a ranch with his wife and his family down in Alpine, Texas. 24,000 acres of Corriente cattle. I first heard Joel Nelson as a reciter of poetry. I first heard him recite a poem by Bruce Kiskadden when they finished shipping cattle in the fall. And then I got to hear some of his own poetry. This is one that was written in 2002 on the Chinese calendar. That's the year of the horse. And that's what he wrote this poem about. It's called Equus Cabias. I have run on middle fingernail through Eolithic morning. I have thundered down the coach road with the revolution's warning. I have carried countless errant knights who never found the grail. I have strained before the caissons. I have moved the nation's mail. I've made knights of lowly tribesmen and kings from ranks of peons. I have given pride and arrogance to writing men for eons. I have grazed among the lodges and the teepees and the yurts. I have felt the sting of driving whips, lashes, spurs, and quirts. I am roguish. I am flighty. I am inbred. I am lowly. I'm a nightmare. I am wild. I am the horse. I am gallant and exalted. I am stately. I am noble. I'm impressive. I am grand. I am the horse. I have suffered gross indignities from users and from winners. I have felt the hand of kindness from the losers and the sinners. I have given for the cruel hand and given for the kind, heaved a sigh at Appomattox when surrender had been signed. I can be as tough as hardened steel, as fragile as a flower. I know not my endurance, and I know not my own power. I have died with heart exploded neath the cheering in the stands, calmly stood beside the hanging noose of vigilante bands. I have traveled under conqueror and underneath the beaten. I have never chosen sides. I am the horse. My world is but a player's stage. My roles have numbered many. Under blue or under gray, I am the horse. So I'll run on middle fingernail until the curtain closes, and I will win your triple crowns, and I will wear your roses. Toward you who took my freedom, I've no malice, no remorse. I'll endure. This is my year. I am the horse.
Grig, who doesn't have a channel but can be found on Instagram.
Hello. I don't read a lot of poetry, not really sure why. My main contact with poems is this podcast called Me Reading Stuff by Robin O'Neill, which I cannot recommend strongly enough. It's really, really cool. She's mentioned that her favorite poet is Mark Strand, and I'd been slowly reading his collected poems. So for this, I picked it back up and tried looking at it a bit more seriously, and in the end I chose a poem called The Dress. Lie down on the bright hill with the moon's hand on your cheek, your flesh deep in the white folds of your dress, and you will not hear the passionate mole extending the length of his darkness, or the owl arranging all of the night, which is his wisdom, or the poem filling your pillow with its blue feathers. But if you step out of your dress and move into the shade, the mole will find you, so will the owl, and so will the poem. And you will fall into another darkness, one you will find yourself making and remaking until it is perfect. Okay, I hope you like that. As I said, I'm not a big poetry reader, but I do enjoy hearing poems, so I really can't wait to see what everyone else is bringing to this. Okay, bye.
Greg, from Another Bibliophile Reads.
Hello, my name is Greg. My channel is Another Bibliophile Reads. I was first introduced to the poetry of Stephen Crane as a sophomore at the University of Maryland, taking an introduction to American literature, 1860 to present. I always found his poetry succinct and profound. In the desert I saw a creature, naked, bestial, who, squatting upon the ground, held his heart in his hands and ate of it. I said, "Is it good, friend?" "It is bitter." "Bitter," he answered, "but I like it because it is bitter and because it is my heart." I stood upon a high place and saw below many devils running, leaping, and carousing in sin. One looked up, grinning, and said, "Comrade, brother." I saw a man pursuing the horizon. Round and round they sped. I was disturbed at this. I accosted the man. "It is futile," I said. "You can never—" "You lie," he cried, and ran on. I walked in a desert, and I cried, "Ah, God, take me from this place." A voice said, "It is no desert." I cried, "Well, but the sand, the heat, the vacant horizon." A voice said, "It is no desert." Many red devils ran from my heart and out upon the page. They were so tiny, the pen could mash them, and many struggled in the ink. It was strange to write in this red ink of things from my heart. A man went before a strange god, the god of many men, sadly wise, and the deity thundered loudly, fat with rage, and puffing, "Kneel, mortal, and cringe, and grovel and do homage to my particularly sublime majesty." The man fled. Then the man went to another god, the god of his inner thoughts, and this one looked at him with soft eyes, lit with infinite compassion, and said, "My poor child." A man toiled on a burning road, never resting. Once he saw a fat, stupid ass grinning at him from a green place. The man cried out in rage, "Ah, do not deride me, fool. I know you, all day stuffing your belly, burying your heart in grass and tender sprouts. It will not suffice you." But the ass only grinned at him from the green place. A man feared that he might find an assassin, another that he might find a victim. One was more wise than the other. A man said to the universe, "Sir, I exist." "However," replied the universe, "the fact has not created in me a sense of obligation." God lay dead in heaven. Angels sang the hymn of the end. Purple winds went moaning, their wings dripping with blood that fell upon the earth. It, groaning thing, turned black and sank. Then from the far caverns of dead sins came monsters, livid with desire. They fought, wrangled over the world, a morsel. But of all the sadness, this was sad. A woman's arms tried to shield the head of a sleeping man from the jaws of the final beast. I do love the poetry of Stephen Crane.
James, from Quaint and Curious Volumes.
Hi, my name is James. My channel is called Quaint and Curious Volumes. I'm going to read A Song on the End of the World. by Czeslaw Milosz. On the day the world ends, a bee circles a clover. A fisherman mends a glimmering net. Happy porpoises jump in the sea. Near the rainspout, young sparrows are playing. The snake is gold-skinned, as it should always be. On the day the world ends, women walk through the fields under their umbrellas. A drunkard grows sleepy at the edge of a lawn. Vegetable peddlers shout in the street, and a yellow-sailed boat comes nearer the island. The voice of a violin laughs in the air and leads into a starry night. And those who expected lightning and thunder are disappointed. And those who expected signs and archangels' trumps do not believe it is happening now. As long as the sun and the moon are above, as long as the bumblebee visits a rose, as long as rosy infants are born, no one believes it is happening now. Only a white-haired old man who would be a prophet, yet is not a prophet, for he is much too busy, repeats while he binds his tomatoes, "There will be no other end of the world. There will be no other end of the world."
Jenny, from Jenny Jables.
Hi, Booktube. It's Jenny Jables here, and I'm going to read two poems by Lucie Brock-Broido from The Master Letters, which was published in 1995. And the first poem is called, "And You Know That I Know, My Lord, That You Know. That I had no idea I had been traveling in the scrying light, crutched friar roaming, snow apple orchards every autumn, clutching the fireless stricken lantern of your feudal dark. It was not known to me to stop there in the scarce field of the cold country, constant, Prussian, quickened, and set the shunt lamp down, the exquisite extinguishing, the adumbrated thing, in the monarchy of me, my ritual, and tinctured mouth. I had no idea that I had wandered like a torch monk cowled in the dulcet life, deceive and now be done with it. Each night you loose your face in the dauntless, dusted temple of my hair, each fall, relentless, willingly. You were numberless and kill the light." Oh, okay. And then the second poem is called Radiating Naivety. I am a false philosopher of this world, a steady congregation of one, nobody's panther, nobody's tinny cigar box, nobody's violin, no midsummer naif in Havana rain. I am glad to see the summer dying off, the umbrage of the cornfields, breast-high stalks gone brittle in the drought. The headlights early coming on, dusk is an old adjective, color of the blind, reading their prayer in pox. You should have been a contender, a Canadian dime mixed up in our own, worthless and shiny, jamming up vending machines and roadside phones, old Indian. The harvest will be small this year and dear. I'm nobody's truck farmer, nobody's juke, nobody's cold sweat on the wooden front porch, nobody's southern heartbreak hill. I'm wide-eyed as Louis Armstrong when he woke, moonlit, in his darkened motel room. All my white soprano injuries. I am acquisitive. I pray, alone in the ashes, nobody's isotope, no glass of milk, nobody's stained glass messages, not the radium in its dish, wide-eyed as Madame Curie lit by half-lives at her hand, nobody's sin, nobody's white-knuckled God, nobody's hummingbird. Thank you.
Joshua, from Joshua Crebo Reads.
Hello, BookTube, and hello, Poetry Party. My name is Joshua Crebo, and I'm going to be reading you two poems today. The first one is by Wallace Stevens. It's called "The House Was Quiet and the World Was Calm," and the reason why I chose this one is because to me it's in my knowledge the best poem about the joys of reading, about loving books. So here it is. The house was quiet and the world was calm. The reader became the book, and summer night was like the conscious being of the book. The house was quiet and the world was calm. The words were spoken as if there was no book, except that the reader leaned above the page, wanted to lean, wanted much most to be the scholar to whom his book is true, to whom the summer night is like a perfection of thought. The house was quiet because it had to be. The quiet was part of the meaning, part of the mind, the access of perfection to the page. And the world was calm. The truth in a calm world in which there is no other meaning, itself is calm. Itself is summer and night. Itself is the reader leaning late and reading there. And so that was Wallace Stevens. And for the second poem, I want to read you all some light verse because it is a party after all, and we must have some laughs. So here is Idyll by Samuel Johnson. Hermit whore in solemn cell, wearing out life's evening grey, strike thy bosom, sage, and tell what is bliss and which the way. Thus I spoke, and speaking sighed, scarce repressed the starting tear, when the hoary sage replied, "Come, my lad, and drink some beer." And so that is all. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Allie, for setting up this wonderful party, and bye-bye.
Mark, from The Book Thing.
Hello, I'm Mark from The Book Thing. The Irish satirist Flann O'Brien once said, having considered the matter in, of course, all its aspects, I've decided that there is no excuse for poetry. When he wrote The Workman's Friend in his novel of 1939, At Swim Two Birds, it's fairly likely he meant it as a parody of bad Irish verse and barstool pontificating. Still, the poem has endured. The Workman's Friend by Flann O'Brien. When things go wrong and will not come right, though you do the best you can, when life looks black as the hour of night, a pint of plain is your only man. When money's tight and hard to get and your horse is also ran, when all you have is a heap of debt, a pint of plain is your only man. When health is bad and your heart feels strange and your face is pale and wan, when doctors say you need a change, a pint of plain is your only man. When food is scarce and larder bare and no rashers grease your pan, when hunger grows as your meals are rare, a pint of plain is your only man. In time of trouble and lousy strife, you have still got a darling plan. You can still turn to a brighter life. A pint of plain is your only man.
Mariandrea from Books and Bocadillos.
Hi, thank you, Allie, for having me, and thank you for hosting this poetry party. I am thrilled to be here with you and with everyone, the audience, the contributors. It's an honor. My name is Mariandrea, and my channel name is Books and Bocadillos, and today I want to read The Raincoat by Ada Limón. The Raincoat was originally published in this collection of poetry by Ada Limón titled The Carrying, published by Milkweed Editions in 2018. This particular collection won the National Book Critics Circle Award. The poem was then later republished in this anthology titled The Path to Kindness, Poems of Connection and Joy, edited by James Cruz. A little bit about Ada Limón. Ada Limón is an American poet. In 2022, she was named the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States. She was the first Latina Poet Laureate. She has published 7 books of poetry, 2 picture books, 1 anthology titled You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World, which she edited, and it was published in 2024. She has a new collection of poems coming out in September of this year titled Startlement, New and Selected Poems, also by Milkweed Editions. Let's get to the reading. This is The Raincoat by Ada Limón. When the doctor suggested surgery and a brace for all my youngest years, my parents scrambled to take me to massage therapy, deep tissue work, osteopathy, and soon my crooked spine unspooled a bit. I could breathe again and move more in a body unclouded by pain. My mom would tell me to sing songs to her the whole 45-minute drive to Middle to Rock Road and 45 minutes back from physical therapy. She'd say that even my voice sounded unfettered by my spine afterward. So I sang and sang because I thought she liked it. I never asked her what she gave up to drive me or how her day was before this chore. Today, at her age, I was driving myself home from yet another spine appointment, singing along to some maudlin but solid song on the radio, and I saw a mom take her raincoat off and give it to her young daughter when a storm took over the afternoon. My God, I thought, my whole life I've been under her raincoat thinking it was somehow a marvel that I never got wet. This is a really sweet poem about mother and daughter, about familial love, and I like the movement. I like the movement initially in the first part. There's a lot going on. There's all these appointments. They're scrambling to appointments, and they're in a car, and she's in pain, and her mom teaches her to sing through the pain, singing as a coping mechanism for pain. As she ages, she's still going to these appointments on her own and still singing in her car. And this whole poem, we experience like a whole lifespan. And the first part, we're always in a car. We're in a car with the narrator and her parents. And then at the end, we're in the car with the narrator. And I love the setting. I love that we're in a car and we're always moving. The first part of the poem, the vowel sounds are shorter and it makes the poem go a little faster. At the end, it slows down a bit as she's having this aha, where the vowel sounds become longer and you're like in awe and you're having this aha moment with the narrator as she's realizing the sacrifices that have taken place. And the Latin root for the word sacrifice means to make holy or to perform a sacred act. And it feels amazing to be the reader sitting in this car with this narrator as she is having this sacred realization of a sacred time with her family. And it's like amazing to just realize that with someone as they're having it. And then for me as a reader, having that realization myself as like, what have I been missing? What's been in front of me all this time about love that I didn't know that's always been there? Thank you so much for having me.
Kevin, from Kevin Toll Reads.
Hello, it's Kevin from Kevin Toll Reads. I want to thank Allie for this wonderful poetry party and the invite. I'm very excited to share with you 3 poems. 3 poems that for me are about one's inner reflection. And yeah, I'm really excited to share with them. We're going to start with the first one, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. My second poem is A Book by Emily Dickinson. There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. This traverse may the poorest take, without oppress of toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears a human soul. My last poem is by a very obscure poet named J.M. Storm. This has no title, as most of his poetry doesn't, and I'm really excited to share this one. They watched, and she danced in the flames, and they wondered why she wasn't burnt. And she would glance at them and ponder how they coped with the cold. Again, these are three of some of my favorite poems, talking about inner reflection. They really make you think deep about oneself. And again, I want to thank Allie for this invite to this wonderful poetry party. Thanks.
Mark from Book Ramble.
Kia ora, I'm Mark, and I have a book channel called Book Ramble. And although I'm British, I'm actually in New Zealand. And I feel that I'm blessed to be amongst such esteemed company. So thank you, Ali. My poem is about love, and it's probably one of the greatest ones ever written. William Shakespeare and Sonnet 18. I'll try and do it justice. I'm going to be reading it from this big beast. So to help myself, and so I can get as much eye contact as possible, I'm going to hold it up here, so it's going to look slightly odd when I look to the left here. So here I go. And to read this, I need to get into an odd position so that I can try and look as much as possible to the camera and then read this very small text at the same time. Should have done one about aging. Here we go. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Wonderful stuff. That's my contribution. So, ta-ta for now. And Ali, who's up next?
Miguel from Libro Paradiso.
Two poems by Constantine Cavafy. Far off and return. Far off. I would like to speak of this memory, but it's so dim now, it seems nothing's left of it, because it lies far off in my first years as a young man. Skin as if made from jasmine. On that August, was it an August night? I almost remember the eyes now. They were, I think, deep blue. Yes, that's right. Deep blue. Sapphire blue. Return. Return often and take me. Love feeling, return and take me. When the body's memory awakes and old yearnings go through the blood again. When the lips and skin remember and the hands sense that they touch again. Return often and take me in the night. When the lips and skin remember.
Lekden, from Reading from the Depths.
Hello, my name is Lekden from the channel Reading from the Depths. I want to thank Allie for hosting this poetry party and for inviting all of us. Today, I want to offer a poem by Ocean Vuong. This comes from his 2022 collection, Time is a Mother. The poem is called Nothing. We are shoveling snow, this man and I, our backs coming closer along the drive. It's so quiet, every flake on my coat has a life. I used to cry in a genre that no one read. What a joke, they said, on fire. There's no money in it, son, they shouted, smoke from their mouths. But ghosts say funny things when they're family. This man and I, we take what will vanish anyway and move it aside, making space. There is so much room in a person, there should be more of us in here. Traveler, who is inches away but never here, are you warm where you are? Are you where you are? Something must come of this. In one of the rooms in the house the man and I share, a loaf of rye is rising out of itself, growing lighter as it takes up more of the world. In humans, we call this aging. In bread, we call it proof. We're in our 30s now, and I rolled the dough just an hour ago, pushing my glasses up my nose with a flour-dusted palm as I reread the hand-scrawled recipe given me by the man's grandmother, the one who, fleeing Stalin, bought a ticket from Vilnius to Dresden without thinking it would stop, it so happened, in Auschwitz. It was a town, after all, where she and her brother were asked to get off by soldiers who whispered, keep moving, like boys leading horses through wheat fields in the night. How she passed the huddled coats. How some were herded down barbed wire lanes. The smoke from our mouths rising as the man and I bend and lift in silence. The morning clear as one inside a snow globe. How can we know with a house full of bread that it's hunger, not people, that survives? He pours a bag of salt over the pavement. From where I'm standing, it looks like light is spilling out of him, like the dusty sunray that found his grandmother's hands as she got back on the train, her brother at her side, smoke from the engine blown across the faces outside, which soon fall back to pine forests, washed pastures, empty houses with full rooms. The man clutches his stomach as if shot. The light floods out of him. I mean, you. Because something must come of this. When the guard asked your grandmother if she was Jewish, she shook her head, half lying, then took from her bag a roll baked the night before, tucked it in the guard's chest pocket. She didn't look back as the train carried her, newly 20, toward where I now stand on a Sunday in Florence, Massachusetts, squinting at her faded scrawl. Sift flour, then beat eggs until happy yellow. The train will reach Dresden days before the sky is filled with fire bombers. More smoke. A bullet or shrapnel failing to find her. The brother under rubble, his name everywhere around her like the snow falling on your face 40 years later on December 2nd, 1984, while your mother carries you, alive only 3 hours, the few steps to the minivan where your grandmother, 60 now, crowns your head with her brother's name. Peter, she says. Peter, as if the dead could be called back into new, stunned bones. The snow has started up again, whitening the path as though nothing happened. But to live like a bullet, to touch people with such intention, to be born going one way toward everything alive. To walk into the world you never asked for and choose a place where your wanting ends. Which part of war do we owe this knowledge? It's warm in this house where we will die, you and I. Let the stanza be one room then. Let it be big enough for everyone, even the ghosts rising now from this bread we tear open to see what we've made of each other. I know we've been growing further apart, unhappy but half full. That clearing snow and baking bread will not fix this. I know, too, as I reach across the table to brush the leftover ice from your beard, that it's already water. It's nothing, you say, laughing for the first time in weeks. It's really nothing. And I believe you. I shouldn't, but I do. Thank you.
Mollie, from The Reading Hour.
Hiya, it's Mollie from The Reading Hour, and here is my entry for the poetry party. I'm not a big poetry guy, but I do like Tim Key. Most of his stuff is fairly short, so Ali let me read 3. This one's called The Thick of Night. Your arms jutting into my flank, I whispered to my lover. Oh, F off, Chris, she slurred, still half asleep. I frowned. My name's not Chris. This one's called Trim. I went into the hairdresser's and showed him a photo of a bloke. I'd like a haircut like that. Cheers. He went very serious. That's my brother, he said. A little less off the fringe there, I continued, miming scissors, licking my lips. Where did you get this photo of my brother? I rubbed my hands together and pulled out my plastic shawl. I fixed it round my neck and did a little curtsy. I waddled over to the chair. This one's called Clacker. It was so sunny. When Ray Wells staggered back inside, he was as red as a lobster. Also, he had developed pincers. His wife reeled back on seeing this abomination. She screamed as he clacked and mewed. She spat at him and started bringing up other instances where he had, in some way, let her down or been an arsehole. Thank you for listening.
Thomas, from Art and Lit Matters.
No worst, there is none. Pitched past, pitch of grief, more pangs will schooled at 4 pangs, wilder ring. Comforter, where? Where is your comforting? Mary, mother of us, where is your relief? My cries heave, herds long, huddle in a main and chief woe, world's sorrow, on an age-old anvil, wince and sing. Then lull, then leave off. Fury had shrieked, no lingering, let me be fell, force, I must be brief. Oh, the mind has mountains, cliffs of fall, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed, hold them cheap who ne'er hung there, nor does long our small durance deal with that steep or deep. Here, creep, wretch, under comfort serves in a whirlwind, all life death does end, and each day dies with sleep. Now, there's something strangely comforting about that almost shrieking hell broth of despair. And what it is the underlying creative intensity that takes an image like pitched past pitch of grief, more pangs will schooled at 4 pangs wilder ring, and plays off of the semantic ambiguity and richness of the word pitch, which of course can mean pitch black in the sense of that tarish, sticky stuff that can be smeared upon you, and so it becomes a black that's a stand-in for the dark night of the soul, pitched past pitch of grief. But it also can be pitched as in the sense of tossed or thrown away or hurled headlong flaming from the ethereal god with hideous ruin and combustion down to bottomless perdition, as Milton would write. Or it can be pitch in the sense of music, a strain of sound that is devilish and hellacious, devil's violins, demons' trumpets, the pitch of pure suffering, that bad, cacophonous, shrieking, hell broth music. So in one word and one image, you have these multiple meanings that coalesce and resonate with each other. And that is precisely what Gerard Manley Hopkins was an absolute master of. Gerard Manley Hopkins was a Victorian poet born in 1844, died in 1889, and yet there was no one in Victorian England who had the ears and the mind to hear just what magic Hopkins was performing, where language is distilled down into its raw, elemental, almost shamanistic, talisman, forceful utterances that coalesce in a saying that reaches so far beyond what can be said in prose. Okay, the poem we're going to be looking at today by Hopkins is called The Windhover, and he wrote it in 1877. And basically, it is the experience of Hopkins walking out at the morning and seeing the amazing flight of a bird as it dives down and skates turning on the wind and then goes into another dive. And it stirs a whole reflection on Hopkins' part on the inward aesthetics and psychology and spirituality of diving, of submission. I caught this morning morning's minion, kingdom of daylight's dauphin, dapple dawn-drawn falcon, in his riding of the rolling level underneath him steady air, and striding high there, how he rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing in his ecstasy, then off, forth on swing as a skate's heel sweeps smooth on a bow bend. The hurl and gliding rebuffed the big wind. My heart in hiding stirred for a bird, the achieve of, the mastery of the thing, brute beauty and valor and act. O air, pride, plume here, buckle, and the fire that breaks from thee then, a billion times told lovelier, O my chevalier. No wonder of it, sheer plod makes plough down Cillian shine, and blue bleak embers, ah my dear, fall, gall themselves, and gash gold vermilion. Gerard Manley Hopkins, astonishing poet. No one had ears to hear him until the catastrophe of the First World War brought in a sense of urgent modernity and receptivity to strange new rhythms and intensities. But he is a magnificent poet, and I urge you to read him.
Yowie, who doesn't have a channel, but you can find her on Instagram.
Hello, my name is Yowie. I am a lover of literary fiction, history books, and I'm very glad to be part of this event. It is especially exciting because Booktubers, whose content I enjoy so much, I appreciate so much, are here part of this poetry party event. So Ali, thank you so much for putting this together. I will be sharing a poem from this book by Mary Oliver. The poem is entitled The Lily. Night after night, darkness enters the face of the lily, which lightly closes its 5 walls around itself, and its purse of honey, and its fragrance, and is content to stand there in the garden, not quite sleeping, and maybe saying in lily language some small words we can't hear even when there is no wind anywhere. Its sleeps are so secret. Its tongue is so hidden. Or maybe it says nothing at all, but just stands there with the patience of vegetables and saints until the whole earth has turned around and the silver moon becomes the golden sun, as the lily absolutely knew it would, which is itself, isn't it, the perfect prayer. Goodbye.
Rebecca, who doesn't have a channel.
Hello, I'm Rebecca, and this is my poem, Gratitude. I ran through your half-silvered panels, blind-free, a bone-narrow corridor, all narrowed out. The echo's ribbed tail told all, a fish in the shape of a guiro, looking to be prize of the hall. I will keep hearing it in death, rattling these guiding walls. You, my old school, will never be outgrown. Listening well, do you hear me bleed thanks from under a cut glass tome? That I will learn to be quieter, that I will never fear alone. By God, does the warm damp that flakes the hum off these hallowed walls feel like home?
Tom, who doesn't have a channel, but you can find his cats on Instagram.
Okay. Hi Ali, hi everyone. My name is Tom. I've written some poems, which I would like to share with you at this lovely poetry party. So, first poem. These are all haiku, by the way, which is inspired by Ali, who also likes to write haiku. It just seems like a nice little attainable thing. So, first one is called Trial Separation. Nature is soothing. Humanity is harsh. When did we separate? Second haiku. The purple ones. Are the green ones more manly than the purple ones? They both have thorns, sir. Little vignette for you there. Third haiku. Cat got your tongue. If you bite your cat, you will get floof in your mouth. No risk, no reward. I hope you enjoyed this haiku. It's a pleasure to share them with you. Have a good party. Maybe see you on the dance floor later.
Philip, from A Poet Reads to Write.
Oh, Ali, you are such a genius for coming up with this idea of a poetry party. I hope it is a booming success. When you invited me to take part in this, I could only choose one poem. I had to read for you my Doctor Who poem. This is from a collection of ekphrastic confessional poetry called Cactus. And the poem I'm going to read for you is called Symphony in TARDIS Blue. I hope you enjoy it, Ali. This is my Doctor Who poem for you. When I wrote this poem, I decided to have some fun. This is from a time before I had Billy, when I was very mobile and would often find myself seated in Hamer Hall, the magnificent concert house that housed the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. And on this particular occasion, I was there for a performance of Anton Dvorak's New World Symphony. You know, Symphony Number 9. It's always been one of my favourite pieces of all time. And for this particular performance of the symphony, the conductor was the Taiwanese Zhang Yang. This remarkable young conductor. She had no sheet music, no podium. So she came out and simply stood before the symphony orchestra, the whole experience committed to memory. And her conducting of this symphony was so expressive. It just had such magnetic charge. You know, the symphony was just delightful to listen to, as always. But Zhang Yang's conducting of it, oh boy. So I decided to have some fun and imagine Doctor Who regenerated as as Zhang Yang. So Zhang Yang is my new regenerated Doctor Who, bringing this new symphony to bear to life for an Australian audience. And I imagine, through time and space, I imagine Dvorak on his way to New York, stopping by in Australia and writing a symphony for us. So this is the result. Zhang Yang as the new regenerated Doctor Who. This is my poem for you, Ali. Symphony in TARDIS Blue. Before the mercilessly spiteful steamship of state, packed with an army of cloned robot wasps and hurtling into a black hole, Zhang Yang, regenerated as the Doctor, exchanged her sonic screwdriver, which was so 20th century, for a baton that charmed beginnings. The melancholy gesture of violas, a little agitated section from woodwinds and haunting cellos, before the startling riposte of timpani, signalling a restless journey in time and space. At once removed by an octave, double basses bowed with bass clarinets and cor angelis to clear centre stage for the graveness of clapsticks and a didgeridoos droning, stomped defiance. Before the ominous interruption of trombone and horn, a marching, pitiless fanfare in robotic shells, the recycled themes of heartbreak bitterly lingering through a manifesto's 4 movements. Dvorak had been warned against black armband melody. There was, he had been told, tragic majesty in salt pans and arid hearts, a biodiverse paradox of recycling in impoverishment and fire. But Dvorak had heard the first people, Harold's soulful echoes of darker memories in the cane fields, and he had wept at Ruby's gravelly goodness down city streets. Thus he was compelled to dream a symphonic bulletin washed in that blind river song, Gullermal. Such angelic clarity sent packing. So Zhang Yang coaxed, dipped and soared, as from her baton came propulsive resistance to a command economy's mass clone pietism, and formidable purity was uncovered with vast expressive charge. Dvorak scored history in melodies, and while once he scrawled Monica, met with such thunderous applause that he bowed in his box like a king, here the sham of pepper pots was a cramped and sweaty contamination intolerance prosecuted in a doctor's opening night, sleight of hand.
Pat, from Book Chat with Pat.
Hi, this is Pat from the channel Book Chat with Pat. Thank you, Ali, for inviting me to the poetry party. This is such a beautiful idea. It will come as no surprise to anyone who knows me or my channel that I have chosen to read a well-known poem from one of my all-time favorite poets, Mary Oliver. She is a very accessible poet who frequently wrote about the natural world and the importance of paying attention to the natural beauty all around us. I've chosen to read from her collection Devotions the poem entitled Wild Geese. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
And with that, we reach the end of my very first poetry party. Massive, massive thanks again to everyone who contributed to this project. I have been absolutely blown away and amazed by everyone's enthusiasm for the project and the sheer quality and diversity of the poems on offer. It's been a really incredible thing to have taken part in. And yeah, if you are disappointed to have missed out on the opportunity of taking part, then don't worry, because I do plan to do this again. It's been quite an undertaking, I will admit. So it's probably going to be, next year. But yeah, it will happen again. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this very first poetry party, hopefully the first of many. Anyway, that's about it from me and all of my wonderful guests for today. So I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you when I see you.